Welcome back to Dead Wives and Kids with Knives, a nuanced discussion of the literary works of Stephen King. I'm Cody Lindenberger.
I'm Jill Gillespie.
This is Afterwards on Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
We'll be discussing any extra thoughts we had on the book we read for our last episode.
And I had two thoughts.
Two thoughts? Go ahead.
Okay, so in case people want to recap, it's the vampire one.
It's the vampire one. With all the vampires.
With all the vampires that sleep in the basements, don't have coffins because they're not readily available.
Yeah,
so they
because
sleep
coffins are expensive, as we discussed.
Yes. So something that was really important that I wanted to address from that book, because we want to get out like all of the really like serious, like the poignant like points and the characters that come up in these stories, because Stephen King, we make fun of how he was like kind of going through his addictions and writing all of these things, and it's just I don't ever want to like gloss over anything like that. So anyway, he wrote a character that said Jahoobies for boobs, and I laughed every time he said it because I think he said it more than once. It was Crockett, was it the guy that
Larry Crockett?
Yeah, Larry Crockett.
Yeah. And now picture Fred Willard saying that.
What happened? What? Jahoobies?
And then he just sings like a whole song like in Music Man. Jahoobies, Jahoobies, Jahoobies.
Anyway, I just wanted to make sure that got said out loud because it made me laugh as I was reading it.
Those Stephen King dialogues that work so much better on the page than anyone actually trying to say them out loud. You sound like a maniac.
Yeah. So that was my one main takeaway from the story itself.
Those words where he just comes up with them where they just stick with. It's like in The Shining when they call them the martinis, the Martians. And every time I have a martini now, that's all I think about.
See, I didn't even pay attention to that.
I like martinis. Yeah. Jahoobies, that'll stick with me.
Yes. I don't even know if they didn't put it in the movies, so
no,
I don't
out.
even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Oh.
How else would you say that? Jahoobies?
Yeah, where's the emphasis? Jahoobies.
Jahoobies.
Anyway, he was a dirtbag.
Yes.
Is the end of that. Stephen King's really good at writing dirtbags.
He is.
As we will learn as we continue this journey,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my main first point I wanted to make. How about you?
I didn't really have anything else from the book. I just finished rewatching True Blood.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever watched True Blood?
No.
True Blood was a vampire series on HBO that started in like the mid 2000s, late 2000s into the 2010s. And first of all, it's wild watching shows from that era compared to like things like Game of Thrones now and like Succession. Like the production value, it makes those shows look like a CW show. Like anytime they go into the woods, like it's just the same 3 fake trees every single time, with just like dry ice smoke coming up around them. Like it's so cheaply made compared to what we're used to now. But in the final season, they have this like big like vampire that they've been building up to, who's like the big evil main like bad guy, and they bring in Rutger Hauer, who you're led to believe for like 3 episodes is going to be this big main vampire. And I just have to believe that's because of all the vampires we've seen him play when we've been doing Salem's Lot. They're like, we got to get Rutger for this. We have to get him. But it ends up being a psych out. He actually ends up playing a different character instead of the big bad vampire.
Do they call him like the truest blood?
Pretty much.
Okay.
But he was actually the fake blood.
Yeah. As you were talking, I'm like, is that the show that everybody complained ended really poorly? But I think that was Walking Dead. I can't remember. Some people were like really mad at the end of some show.
People get mad at the end of every show.
It's
People
true.
hated the end of Game of Thrones. People hate the end of... And I'm kind of like, as a Stephen King fan, I don't care about the ending of things. That's not the point of things,
No.
Stephen King, he's famously said, like, the only reason he writes the ending of his books is because otherwise they wouldn't end. Like that's not the point. The point is the story.
Yeah.
The ending is just the ending. Get over it.
Yeah.
No, the ending of the True Blood, the past like 2 seasons of True Blood, it just gets so crazy. They spin out where like they just have to give so many characters their own storylines, and it's one of these shows where they bring in more and more like supernatural creatures and Like it starts out, it's like vampires and then werewolves and then fairies, and then you get like naiads and like Greek like supernatural creatures, and it like goes, and then like the government gets involved, and
we got to keep heightening,
it's
I
wild.
guess.
And it's also all very queer coded because Alan Ball, the guy that created it, is a gay writer, and so there's all that going on over the top of it and everything. And then they introduce this like vampire AIDS crisis to it, and that becomes like takes over like the entire storyline the final season.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then the main character becomes like vampire Jesus.
This is an improv scene.
Yeah.
This show is an
they
improv
heightened
scene.
to vampire Jesus.
Yeah.
Which we try to teach people not to do.
All right. Well, cool.
Yeah. What was your second thought?
I watched the Simpsons, the Treehouse of Horror that vaguely is Jerusalem's Lot or Salem's Lot coded.
Yeah.
But they never reference that it is. The only reason we know that it maybe is inspired by Salem's Lot is because I found like a wiki that said so. But
the scene with Millhouse outside the window is the most Salem's Lot part of that episode.
yeah, but
Most of it's really just Dracula
and Lost Boys is
and Lost Boys. Yeah.
is that. And then my brain was like, okay, but what came first? What did the Salem's Lot story come first, or did the Lost Boys? Was Lost Boys based on any, or was Lost Boys just that movie?
I think Lost Boys definitely is after Salem's Lot came out, and I don't think Lost Boys is based on any other.
Is that Peter Pan? No. Yeah. No.
I mean, kind of.
They have like a group name, don't they?
Yeah, there's definitely some Peter Pan-ness to the Lost Boys,
but not the same lore. No, because
No.
they were vampires. Okay, but Lost Boys. I did not watch.
Peter Pan really. There's some dark interpretations of Peter Pan where Peter Pan, you can see him as sort of this like supernatural creature where he is keeping these children because he doesn't want to grow up, and so he's keeping them from growing up also.
Yeah.
I read a really great short story that's in a collection I have where essentially it's telling the Peter Pan story, but he's just a fucking monster.
Yes.
And Hook is like the victim of it, who's just being tormented by this supernatural creature, by this like basically like Greek god, in the form of a little boy.
Yes.
That's just tormenting him.
Yes, I know that version of the story where he's actually evil.
Yeah.
So yes. The show Once Upon a Time. Anybody? Okay, great. That they make Pan a villain in that, and it's pretty good. That's another show that also went so far off the rails because they kept bringing stuff into it, and I'm like, I cannot.
You know, a lot of shows these days, they get to like the third or fourth season and they're like, we're good. We're done. That's our story. And then it's sometimes better to do that than to like stretch it out into the 7th and 8th seasons where they're like, and now everyone's a witch.
Yeah. And then the WB is like, but then what are we going to put in that spot? It's like, honestly, just repeat. Just now that we know that a lot of shows, we just go back for comfort and familiarity. Reruns, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, so I watched that, and I listened to the commentary. That was in the heyday of when Conan O'Brien was still on their writing team and stuff like that too. And so, but they did not mention anything Salem's Lot in it. But it was very. There was a deleted scene that they had where Bart was like the sunglasses vampire. I think that's a Lost Boy vampire, the sunglasses one. There's a deleted scene where they're having like breakfast the next morning, and Bart like floats in wearing those sunglasses, and Homer's like, see, he's home, he's fine, everything's fine. And then Bart's like, I'll have my breakfast, and he sits down, and like Marge gives him just like a tray of rats, and Homer's like, well, I wish I could have rats, I have to eat this oatmeal. And I'm like, that was the best scene in the whole thing, and they cut it, and it was so funny. But it also affirmed something from Salem's Lot that I didn't really think about, is the fact that when you don't have vampire slayers doing the vampire hunting, that you have to have a hammer with your stake so that you can get into the heart through the rib cage. And so they stayed true to that, and also made a joke about hitting his crotch instead of his heart.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's pretty much all I remembered from Salem's Lot. Anything else for you? Was that everything?
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
But then we also have a couple of follow-up stories related to Salem's Lot that we're going to talk about. from the book Night Shift. Night Shift is a book that was published in 1978 by Stephen King. This is his fourth published book under the name Stephen King, but the fifth book he published overall, because a year before this he published a book called Rage under the name Richard Bachman.
Gotcha.
That was his first book under his pseudonym.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast before, the reason he had to start publishing books under a pseudonym is because he was writing too many books for his publishers' liking. They were like, no, slow down. You're oversaturating your own market. You're competing with yourself now. Like, people are not going to buy this many Stephen King books. And he was like, okay, I'm going to write books and just do them under a different name here. The book Rage is a very controversial Stephen King book. This is the book that is about a young man who goes into his high school with a rifle, shoots his teacher, holds his class hostage, and essentially they sit there and tell stories while the police and the entire town come and sort of surround the school. And yeah. And he wrote this in 1978 before this was just a part of what happens in our country.
Yeah.
And it was later collected in a book called the Bachman books, along with The Running Man, The Long Walk, and a book called Roadwork, which were the four books that were published under the name Richard Bachman, and then later Thinner and a few other ones. And then Columbine happened in 1999, and copies of Rage were found in the lockers of the two young men in Colorado who did that. And Stephen King found out about that. And said, stop publishing that book.
Yes.
I don't ever want this to happen again. And he did everything he could to make sure that no one ever bought a copy of Rage again. No copies of Rage were ever sold again. He had any copies that were out there taken back. And so now, copies of Rage are very hard to find and are in fact collector's items. I have a copy of the Bachman books, a paperback copy that I bought at a secondhand shop in like 1997. When I was in high school, before all of this happened, that I have now that is probably worth some money.
Good.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to pay for all this pizza.
Yeah, that's right.
That we have.
Rage isn't a great story. It's he wrote it when he was in like high school.
Oh, okay.
When he was also just an angry young man who wanted to write stories like that.
Well, that's awful.
Yeah.
But okay.
But anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're going to talk about two stories that were published in Night Shift, the first of which is called Jerusalem's Lot.
Which is Salem longer.
Just, yes. Or maybe it's Jerusalem's Lot. We don't know. However he wants to say that.
Yeah.
Jerusalem's Lot is a short story that was unpublished until Night Shift came out, but he actually wrote this story when he was in college. Between 1967 and 1970. So he wrote this short story 5 years to 7 years before he wrote Salem's Lot. So Jerusalem's Lot actually was the inspiration for the novel Salem's Lot. You want to talk us through Jerusalem's Lot?
Okay, so this is a story told through correspondence.
Yes, Jill's favorite, the epistolatory stories. Letters upon letters upon letters.
And there was a character, I think his name was, I don't know who was writing the letters, but he was writing to somebody called Bones.
Yeah. Everett Granson is our, or Charles Boone is the main character who's writing most of our letters that we're getting.
And he is the one that has come, so it takes place in 1850. He has come to this town to go live in the Boone house or be at the Boone.
Yeah, Chapelwaite, the estate.
The Chapelwaite
It's the name of because back then, if you had a big enough house, it had to have its own name. You can't just say, oh, that's the Boone's house. You have to say, no, that's Chapelwaite. That is.
And then after you Chapelwaite, then you Chapel Roan, right? Is that how it goes?
And then you're chapel done.
Yep. All right.
So yeah, you have Charles Boone, and then you have Calvin McCann, who's like his manservant.
Yes. And so they're back at the house, and they are hearing things in the house.
Yeah, there's like noises in the walls. It's like noises in like the attic and the basement.
Yeah.
And they're like, big rats in here.
Yes. Must be some rats. And then that's where I forget everything until the worm.
Yeah.
So you fill in the gaps for me.
So they're interacting with there's two towns that are nearby Chapelwaite. There is Preacher's Corner, which is where most of the people that they interact with live. There's a woman who brings some like maids to come and clean the house for them every week. Who they're all very like afraid to talk to Charles Boone for some reason. Like only this main woman will talk to them, and all the other maids are just like, you know, terrified to interact with them at all. And then there's like guys who will come and like deliver stuff, you know, but everyone's very sort of like standoffish with him for some reason. In his letters, he's like, I'm a perfectly nice gentleman. Why on earth would they act this way?
Yeah.
And then there is Jerusalem's Lot, which is a town that no one will say anything about. And so he's finding, as he's sort of going through this house, he inherited this house from his uncle. His father and his uncle, we discover through these letters, had some sort of falling out years before, where his father had attempted to steal something from his uncle, and his uncle had thrown him out of the family estate. And so Charles was raised somewhere far off, and his uncle raised his family there, but then his uncle's family suffered a series of tragedies. His son died, his daughter fell like down the stairs and broke her neck, and then his uncle hanged himself in the house. And so Charles gets a letter like, hey, good news, you inherited Chapelwaite because everyone who lived there died. And he's like, hey, Cal, we're moving back up here to Maine. And so they get there, and so they start going into Preacher's Corner and trying to talk to people. And eventually they decide to go investigate Jerusalem's Lot because it's like this abandoned town. And that's when they discover the church.
Yes.
And it's this church that is like untouched. Like he comments in the letters about how you would expect that, you know, nature would have taken it over, or people would have, you know, ransacked it or vandalized it, but it's pristine. It says it was left behind. And the crucifix is like upside down, and there's a giant hole in the middle of the floor and everything. And they find the book there. And the book is De Vermis Mysterious.
The Book of the Worm,
yes.
I wrote down.
Great Latin.
Yes.
But the whole time, Cal is also sending letters to Bones, being like, hey, I'm really worried about Charles.
Yeah.
Like, whatever he's doing here is not good for him. He's like losing his mind. You want to come help us out here?
Yeah.
And so they're investigating, but we're also still getting like, by the way, these noises in the walls are getting worse and worse also. And then we get a letter from from Cal, who's like, oh, Charles is like almost dead. And then like some time passes, and then you get a letter from Charles like, well, I survived. Nearly died, but I'm better now.
Yeah, and this is what happened. Doesn't that he's going back and like telling, like catching Bones up on everything that we missed. So
Yeah.
everything is like in a flashback.
Yeah. And he's like, but you're not gonna believe this.
Yes.
So like they were investigating the house, trying to figure out where all these noises were, and they're going through, and they go down into like the subcellar, and they like see people down there, but they're not people. They're like ghouls. They're like, you know, like creatures at this point. And then he goes upstairs and writes a letter about it.
It's like when you take a selfie at an accident instead of just calling 911. Is that the equivalent there?
Yeah, he's like, oh my God, I have to tell Bones about this.
P.S. Do we know who Bones is?
Bones is Everett Granson, who I think is just a friend of his.
Okay.
Yeah.
Poor Bones.
Yeah.
He's just like, God damn it, another fucking letter from this guy.
I mean, this is before TV. This is all you can do is get your letters from your crazy friends up in Maine and be like, oh my God, another episode.
It's been going on for 6 seasons. Just quit.
They're all witches now? But he starts to find history of his family also at the same time. And they start to discover that his uncle's father, which would be his grandfather, James Boone, built the church that Salem's Lot was built around, that Jerusalem's Lot was built around. And he was like 100-year-old man
Yeah.
who like came back to town from somewhere, and he was the one who brought the book,
Right.
the mysterious Vermis with him.
Book of the Worm.
And built this church and built like a cult around it, and that's why everyone is shunning this family, because of something that happened to that church, and that's why the Boone family has been shunned by the community, and that's why no one wants anything to do with them, because it brought like a blight upon the community. There were crops died, and you know, cows were born with 2 heads, and babies were born without eyes, and just all these evil things were happening because of what James Boone was doing in his church. And so there was some sort of great event, cataclysm that happened that we never really find out about. But James Boone died, and that's what ended up there, you know.
Yeah.
And so then Cal and Charles are like, let's go back to the church. We've got the book. We found the book. We're going back to the church. We're going to figure this out, you know. And you get the feeling they're going on some sort of like an exorcism or something. And so they get all their tools. They can't get anyone else to go with them because everyone else understands you just leave Jerusalem's lot alone. We don't go there. We don't talk about it. We just ignore it. We live in Preacher's Corner. We're good people.
It's the Preacher's Corner.
Yeah, that's why we call it that. But no, they go across the pond. They go across the creek or whatever. They go into Jerusalem's lot. They go into the church, and they summon Yog-Sothoth, the Great Worm. And you get this. He's still writing the letter.
Bones, check it.
He drew a picture of it. You get the story of this great beast worm came out of the ground, and Charles got away, but Cal was devoured by it, and it's just the most terrifying thing he's ever seen. And he's like, I shouldn't have done that, you know. And so he flees, gonna leave Chapelwaite. He understands no one should live there, no one should have anything to do with it, and so he goes. And then you get a final letter from Bones' perspective, where he's like, you know, these are clearly the writings of a madman. No one believes any of this. This is all just, he was sick the whole time. Obviously, he was deranged. Anyways, I'm getting letters from the new residents at Chapelwaite now. We found some distant cousins who are now living there, because someone has to live at Chapelwaite. We can't live it abandoned. It's a beautiful house.
Right.
The only problem is they say there's some rats in the wall.
Yep.
And that's how it is.
Yeah. Did they ever really reveal the rats in the wall thing? Was that?
It was the people they found in the basement. Like it's
That's right.
The family is all just being turned into like essentially
Ghouls in the basement.
ghouls in the basement. Yeah,
That's right.
whatever, pre-vampires, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that's Jerusalem's lot.
Yeah, so the things that mainly were the same were the creepy mansion and the person hanging in the creepy mansion
Yeah.
and things in the basement.
Yeah.
Other than that, the story was pretty different.
Well, I like the idea of just like the town itself is just a place for evil. Like there's this sort of like monster underneath it, this great evil creature. It's so Stephen King has like really 2 main literary influences on him when he's a young writer. There's Richard Matheson, who was a short story fiction writer, a novel writer, wrote a lot of like Twilight Zone episodes are based on short stories he wrote. And then there's H.P. Lovecraft, who's a real piece of shit, but who created the whole like concept of like Lovecraftian horror, the cosmic horror, you know, things that are coming out of time and space that we can't comprehend. And this to me feels like Stephen King writing his version of Lovecraftian horror. You know, you're tampering with forces you can't fathom. And the name Yog-Sothoth actually comes from Lovecraft himself.
Okay.
So this is sort of his nod to that there.
Gotcha.
But yeah, other than that, this doesn't have that much to do with Salem's Lot. It's not like someone's like, and then we received a letter from a man named Barlow saying, I'd like to purchase your house.
Right. For 1 cent or whatever it was.
Yeah. But the other thing I like about it that comes into play is just the idea of the people in Preacher's Corner just being like, we know bad things happen there. We just ignore it.
Yeah.
Just mind your business, man.
Yeah.
That's a concept that comes up over and over again in Stephen King's stories, is like small towns just keeping to themselves.
Yeah. And it's very, like, you know something is horror, like when you're trying to figure out, well, what genre is this story in? Like a horror is going to be the people that keep wandering off on their own or keep like doing the thing they're not supposed to be doing is a very horror.
Meddling where you shouldn't be meddling.
Yes, it's very... Because I always scream at my TV whenever the lady goes upstairs or whenever like the person goes off by themselves, which we'll be yelling about lots over time. But it's just like that's the genre. That's
necessary for the story.
Yeah, just like
no one wants to watch a story where it's like, I heard a noise. Anyways, back to my TV show. The Jill Chronicles.
Yes. Yeah. So it's as I'm learning and getting more into different kinds of literature that I read, like I'm learning like romance as a trope will always bring the couple together. If the couple does not come together at the end, then it's not romance. It's something else.
Tragedy.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just like kind of recognizing like, well, this book didn't do what I wanted it to do. And it's like, well, because you wanted it to be a romance or you wanted it to be something that it wasn't.
That's the thing, like you can divide Shakespeare's plays into two categories. The comedies end in weddings, the tragedies end in deaths.
Mm-hmm. So once that finally clicked for me, like about horror, like the idea is to get really mad at people going off and doing things they're not supposed to be doing
decisions
and making you real mad about it. It's that's just how horror is.
Yeah.
So
this book did have a TV series made based on it called Chapel Wait. That was on, I think, the MGM streaming service, so I never saw it because I've never had that.
I've never heard of that in my life.
How you subscribe to that?
I think you fax them.
Yeah. Adrian Brody was the star of it.
Okay.
And I've seen like some like clips of it and stuff, but yeah, it's all just like a period piece of just him living in the house and investigating his family, and presumably there's a giant worm at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah. The other story then.
Oh, can I finish? Yeah. Can I conclude the story?
Please.
So as part of my contributions to the Night Shift book, there's like 20 short stories in the whole book. And so at the end of each one, I read it, got over my rage, and then I wrote a haiku.
Yeah.
Just to summarize it, because I read some of these like a month ago, and so I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to remember this, so I'll just write a little haiku that summarizes some point about it. And so we will conclude anytime we talk about a Night Shift story with a haiku.
Please, Jill, wrap up Jerusalem's Lot
Which is
for
a
us.
Poetry form that is structured where the first line has 5 syllables, the second has 7 syllables, and the third line has 5 syllables.
Japanese, I believe.
Yes? Yeah, I didn't really research it that much. I'm sorry. All right. So, Jerusalem's Lot. A house on a hill. The mystery of the worm. Just some rats in the walls. Or just rats in the walls. I won't say it right ever. Anyway, that's
beautiful.
Yes. That's the problem is I flourish. I'm a flourisher when I talk. So
if I have time and feel like it, I'll put the text over those. Or maybe I won't. We'll see.
No, then AI will steal it. Don't steal it. No, just kidding. Just give me credit. All right. So anyway.
Beautiful.
All right.
Words.
Other story.
Our other story is One for the Road. One for the Road is another story from Night Shift. It is published in the March 1977 issue of Maine, a magazine who I took a photo of. This is just, I believe, a magazine by the state of Maine.
Why are they naked?
It's just a promotion. And I'll put this up on the screen also so that everyone can see that. But this is just a magazine that the state of Maine published. And you can see the text here. It says, fiction from the author of Carrie. They're like, we got him.
Yeah.
So this was published the year before Night Shift came out, and this kind of acts as a sequel or an epilogue to Salem's Lot. This story takes place 2 years after the events of Salem's Lot.
And there are some, so I didn't write down any notes on this one, but they were at a bar?
We were at Tukey's Bar in Falmouth, which is like 12 miles down the road from Salem's Lot. It's another one of these little towns up in Maine.
So Tukey was at the bar, and then the guy he was talking to... Booth.
There's a couple other old boys there.
Booth and Bones are from the show Bones. That's how I can remember. And they're having a talk. It's a very snowy. They're very like the roads are closing
it's a real nor'easter up there.
Yeah, oh yeah. And all of a sudden the door bursts open and some city-looking man comes in.
And they're really condescending of him immediately.
Yes.
He's like, look at these gloves. This guy's an idiot.
Yeah. Came in from New York or something
Yeah.
with his fancy coat and all these things. And then he's just like frostbite to death and like needs help.
Like he can't even talk at first, so they have to, get some rum in him to warm him up.
Yes. Yeah, they feed him some booze, get him in front of the fire, and he explains that he has left his wife and his daughter in a car 6 miles away at the junction of the highway where they couldn't get any farther.
And as soon as he tells them sort of where it happened, they're like exchanging looks with each other like, he's fucked.
Yes. And
he's like, why aren't you doing something?
And they're like, because they're like, well, they're probably already dead and gone.
Yeah. And he's like, fine, I'll go to the gas station. They're like, oh, the gas station's closed because he's the guy driving the snowplow right now.
Yeah.
Like, there's only 5 people in this whole town, and
yes, and
3 of them are right here.
Yes. And so, I don't remember too much of the nuance of this was a much shorter story, so it got right to it.
Yeah.
But they eventually agree. They're like, okay, we'll get my little car that, because they've just plowed.
He's got his 4-wheel drive, like, because they live in Maine and they understand what you have to survive up here.
And so they haul him up into the car, and
they're trying to temper his expectations a lot.
Yeah, they're like not telling him anything specific, but they're like, we're gonna go up if we find the car.
If they're
in it, great. We'll get him out of the car and we'll drive back. If they're not in it, we're gonna drive back.
We're coming home.
Like either way.
And he's like, why on earth would they not be in the car? And they're like, because that's Jerusalem's lot, you idiot.
Yes.
But they don't tell him that. But
yes.
We've gotten some exposition beforehand where they're like, no one ever says the word vampire until this one guy one night got too drunk and said, look, we all know what's going on out there. It's vampires. I can take care of this. I'm going to go up there and kill them all. And we never saw him again.
Never heard from him again.
But they kind of talk about before, we're getting kind of like paragraphs where they're kind of explaining the realities of living here next to Jerusalem's lot, how it's been the last 2 years. And it's kind of the same thing with Preacher's Corner, where they're kind of like, we just don't mess with it.
Yeah.
We just stay here. We don't go out at night. And if occasionally people on the road disappear, well, that's just the cost of doing business.
Yep.
We're in Falmouth. Falmouth is okay.
Yeah. And so they get up to the car. That it's still running, but nobody's in it. So they're like, all right, welp. And then he loses his fucking mind.
Because he can see the footsteps.
Yes. So he gets out of the car and goes and runs into the snow, screaming for his family. And he screams for a long time, sets it up where we know we're not going to hear from them. And all of a sudden,
these are old men.
Yes.
And they're just kind of like, they're kind of trudging along behind him, like, this goddamn fool.
From New Jersey, it ended
from
up
New
being.
Jersey, yeah. Gerald Lumley from New Jersey.
Yeah. And then finally there's a Jerry.
The worst kind of fool.
Yeah. And there's finally you hear like the Jerry, and it's the wife calling for him. She's a vampire.
No coat.
No coat.
Just standing on top of the snow.
That's right. He was so pissed when he like opened the car, their coat was still sitting in there. She's like, well, why the fuck would she do that? Because he's maybe a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, because they were abducted. And so she is very obviously a vampire. And then all of a sudden we see daughter.
So Jerry starts to go towards her. And all of a sudden she just is on him. And Booth and Tookie are like, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
They get back to their car, to his 4-wheel drive vehicle.
That's right.
And all of a sudden there's a little girl there.
That's right.
And, she's doing the, Mister, please give me a hug.
Yeah.
And Booth makes eye contact with her. And as we know from Salem's Lot, you're not supposed to do that. Because these vampires can glamour you. And he starts to lean into her, and she's getting closer and closer to his neck. And all of a sudden something flies past him and hits her. And she reacts to it violently and just kind of disappears into the snow.
Yeah.
And he looks down, and it's Tookie's mom's Bible.
Yep.
Chucked it at her out of the cab of the truck.
Yep.
And that scared her off. And they get in the cab and they drive back to the bar.
Yep.
And he's telling this story, you know, like later, like he's telling it to some unnamed person that we're talking to at the bar later, you know. And there's this great line at the very end of it, you know. He's like, you know, we gotta warn people though. If you're anywhere near Jerusalem's Lot, just keep driving because there's a little girl somewhere out there, and I think she's still waiting for her goodnight kiss.
Yep.
And I just love that line.
Yep. Yeah. So that one much shorter, very straightforward.
Yeah.
He died. He's out there. He's out there. He's a vampire now,
oh, yeah.
too.
The lovely family are all vampires now.
Yep.
But they're together.
Yep.
And that's nice.
Yep. So, cool.
But yeah, this shows, I think, 10 years of progression of Stephen King as a writer.
Yeah.
Well, he took him, 40 pages to do in Jerusalem's Lot, what he does in like 10 pages in One for the Road to tell the story he wants to tell.
Yeah.
To get
He
his
is
point
capable.
across. Yeah.
He's capable of doing it.
He can be short and concise when he wants to be.
Yeah.
Now, I'm currently reading our next book, and he is not short and concise at all.
Yeah.
I really love this story.
Yeah.
I love One for the Road. He does such a great job in the early setup of making you feel like you're in that bar, just feeling the cold and being like, no one wants to go out there. That's the whole point of being in this bar right now, being in this tavern. This is safety. This is the security. And here comes this goddamn idiot from New Jersey who's going to wreck this for all of us.
Yep. And he did. Yeah.
But again, it's the same thing of just like, small towns keep their secrets, because there's a line he also says about how, like, when they got back, they didn't call the police. They didn't, when the police even came, they didn't tell them what had happened, because the people who didn't know didn't need to know, and the people who knew what happened already understood.
Yep.
They all know what's going on. They don't need to say it. They're all aware of it. Small towns keep their secrets, and that's a recurring theme in Stephen King books and Stephen King short stories. They don't talk about it to the outside world.
Yeah.
They take care of themselves.
Yeah, which always sets up nicely like a fish out of water character.
Yeah.
The one that comes into town to try to.
Yeah. And a lot of his short stories, that's kind of the theme of them. And it doesn't go well for them.
No. All right.
Stay home, New Jersey.
Stay home. So I wrote a little haiku for this one too,
right.
probably. Maine snows will get ya. That might be preferable when there's Maine vamps too.
Lovely.
Cool. I think that's plenty for this episode. What do you think?
I think that's great.
All right. Well, we have really cool stuff coming up over the weeks and months. We are going to
do
eventually
the Dead Zone.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Dead Wives and Kids with Knives is produced by Cody Lindenberger, Joe Gillespie, and Manasharc Productions. Filmed and recorded by Sadie Till and Marcus Leacox.